Yay.
I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, we met, I guess it's been 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And we met at work, working at Hampton Social.
Right.
And we met, and I was like, I have to be friends with her. And then now it's been years later, and I'm like, look at that.
It worked out really well.
I know. Yeah. Aw. Well, I wanted to start off by just talking about, your upbringing, because I know your family is from Honduras. So how it was growing up with foreign parents and what got you into traveling.
Okay. So we're from Honduras. I was born there, and my parents came to the States when I was like 5 years old, and I stayed behind with my aunts, and they took care of us for a bit while my parents situated like documentation and all that to bring us over. Luckily, when we emigrated from Honduras to the States, we emigrated to Jersey, and like the city that I grew up in, Union City, is just super, super densely populated by Latin America. I mean, it's all of it. Wow. It's Cuba, it's Puerto Rico, it's the islands, Colombia, Peru. You have a mix of everything. And so to me, it wasn't weird. I was like surrounded by that culture and a mixture of it. So I have a little bit of everything. Even when I speak Spanish, sometimes I can sound very Puerto Rican because I grew up around a bunch of Puerto Ricans, and sometimes I can sound very Honduran because of speaking to my parents, and food wise and culture wise, I was just immersed in just such diversity. But it was good. I mean, all my friends were Latin. I didn't really, I hate to say it, but like Caucasian people, like I wasn't surrounded by them at all.
Right.
It was like weird things like the lime and the lemon. Like I grew up with the lime being the primary like citrus fruit, and the lemon being something that we would see on TV. And so and so like in Honduras, like my grandma's house, just a bunch of lime trees, like that was it. Like you would see a lemon as like we got lemons, like the yellow limes, and it was just like this weird thing. I loved my upbringing. I loved where I grew up. Sometimes I think maybe I would move back there, just because I feel like that culture and stuff, to raise a family around like such diversity is so cool, and so it's like brings a different perspective,
Totally.
But yeah, so that, and my parents are back in Honduras now. They moved back like two or 3 years ago, maybe like 2 years ago now, and they come back every summer in America, and then they go back for the winters. This year, my mom just stayed. She's like, "What am I gonna go do in America?" She's like very uninterested. But my dad comes back and forth more frequently because my sister has kids, and he comes to see my nieces and nephews now.
What was their reasoning of coming to the States?
Opportunity. Yeah, really is very much opportunity. I mean, Honduras is a third world country, and there isn't a middle class. And I know like our middle class is also dwindling in the U.S. It's barely existing now. In Honduras, it's very much either you're very, very poor, like dirt floor poor, or you're wealthy. And there's just no in the middle. And so my dad was able to take his pension and all the Social Security benefits and stuff with him, and now he lives over there, and they just just things cost less, so you just can live a nicer life. Whereas if they stayed in the U.S., it'd be kind of in poverty now because things are so expensive, especially with what was like 13% inflation that we're dealing with. So yeah, it's definitely better. And now it's like it's fun to see them without the responsibility of having to raise kids, because now they're
such a different life.
Yes, and I've had conversations with my dad when he first moved, where I was like, listen, because he's telling me how he's bored and he doesn't know how to spend his time, and he's making issues in the house that they have to fix, and I'm like, Dad, listen, like this is your time to find out who you are. Like you had kids at a very young age, Mom had kids at a very young age. You guys never really got the chance to figure that out, and it's important, and this is why you're here, so like really learn yourself, put yourself in weird positions, be open to opportunities, And so I feel like I've seen them little by little do it, and making friends, and they just went to Peru, and they spent, I think it was like 2 weeks there, had a fantastic, amazing time watching the pictures of the joy that they were experiencing was like it's what I've always wanted for them.
Totally. Yeah. And it's such a cool experience to you have traveled a lot. And then now to be able to see your parents experience that at a way later time in their age than you have when you traveled. And to know like, wow, the joy and bliss and all these things that I get traveling, like my parents finally get to experience that. And it's so beautiful because some people never get to experience that ever in their whole lifetime.
Right.
For them to even be able to move back home and be happy to be there and have the money to be able to keep going and like live the life that they want.
Right.
It's
and
just
not
so
have to
amazing.
Like sacrifice, the things that they like and the way that they like to live,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been really, really nice. We're planning on going, a whole bunch of us. We're going to go in January. So we leave like January, I think January 8th is our flight. And then we are going to spend like 10 days there. Just like, it feels like such a short amount of time, especially when you're used to traveling for like long spurts.
Totally.
And I'm like, that's just not enough, but it has to be enough, and it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be great. We're gonna go to San Pedro Sula in Honduras, which is like the capital,
right?
and that's where my parents' home is. So we'll spend a couple days there, see some family, and then we're gonna go to Roatán, which is one of the islands.
Yes.
It has like a beautiful, beautiful barrier reef, and just kind of chill. I'm excited to spend and like travel with my parents, and I'm excited. My sister's going, her boyfriend, Rick's going. Just like a whole bunch of us. My cousin is gonna be great.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, and you get to go back into your roots.
Right.
And how important is that? Like especially because you were born there and you spent 5 years, which like the first 7 years of our life is so vastly important in our development.
Right.
And so to have spent 5 years there, so more than half of that period.
Right.
And then like going back is so powerful.
And like when I first started traveling, I would always get pushback from my family. Like, oh, just why are you going to other countries and you're not coming here? Like, you have to come see us. And I took it for granted. And I always thought, well, that'll always be there. Like, let me take advantage of this. Like, I can always go back home, but like, let me go see this new place or whatever. Now I kind of see it for what it is. I mean, we were talking about your family kind of getting older and wanting to bring your mom to Egypt, right? And so to me, it's that same idea where it's like a lot of my cousins married. I didn't go to their weddings. A lot of my grandma's getting older and I haven't seen her in years. And I'm like, has to be done.
Aww.
It's going to be a great fun time, but it's also going to be like going to bring a lot of things together, I think, for me. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
It's like bringing things full circle. And to see your parents in the space that they're in now, and like being in the mentality and mindset that you're in now too, with like all this change happening in your life, like that's amazing.
I know. I'm excited. I'm excited. Yeah.
So what was your first trip besides going to Honduras? Like solo trip maybe?
So my first trip was a 10-day cruise or something like that, and then I got to see a bunch of islands like Saint Martin.
Yep.
I went to Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, and then some of like the French islands that I don't really remember anymore. But that was great. It was like my first introduction, I think.
How old were you?
I think I was like 19.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like my first introduction to that, and I thought it was like the best. And I was like, cruises, that's it. Like, I love cruises so much, and I just didn't know anything else. You don't know what you don't know. So I was like, I'm gonna do this all the time, and it was a great time. I had always went into yoga teacher training when I was like 19 as well, and then I kind of got into Buddhism and just a whole array of other ways of thinking and other philosophies. Then while I was like doing the yoga, and I was doing the yoga training, and I fell in love with the country Nepal, like deeply. I fell in love with the country Nepal, and I like really badly wanted to go, and so I spent a couple of years trying to get there. It took a while because being of the mentality that you don't have enough money or you can't, it's like taking obstacles and seeing them as definites,
like
roadblocks. And saying, oh well, I can't go, I guess. So I spent a couple of years. When I think back on it, I think that it wasn't that I never had the money. It's maybe I didn't have like the ability to, I'm gonna say this, like put away the fear, because I think it's like fear that also kind of gets in there, and then saying like, well, I'm going to figure this out regardless, and I'm going to make this happen for myself. This is something that I really want, you know, and not saying like, oh, these roadblocks are definite no's and I have to figure something out, you know, like, or I guess I'm just not going. So it's like figuring it out regardless. And so it's something that I wanted. So I went to Nepal for about a month and some change by myself. And that was like the first big trip that I had done alone. And it was scary and thrilling and exciting. And I just didn't know what to expect. But prior to like, I bought the flight finally. And then I started doing a ton of research. Mm-hmm. It was like I bought it months in advance, and so I spent months reading about the country. Where do I want to go? What exactly does it look like? What's my itinerary going to look like? What's my budget? Considering like I still have rent to pay when I come back. How am I gonna, you know, and really being like very direct and very clear with myself. Like, okay, so I need X amount of money to make sure my rent's paid. And this is how much it costs in a day to be in Nepal. And this is how much travel costs. And this is how much a bus costs. And what am I expecting for food, you know, and just like planning it all out. That's what made it very obtainable and very real and like very like, I could do this, was doing that research. Because if not, all you have is your thoughts and like your assumptions, and which can sometimes make you make something small seem very, very big, and you like take it for that. You're like, oh, how am I even going to pay this rent? You know, it's like you can break it down. And so I did that. And I created like an itinerary for myself, essentially, for the 40 days or whatever that I was there, right? And
wow, that's a long time to be there.
I know, and I was so scared. I was so scared. But I said I really want to see this country, you know, and any like anything that literature that I would read about backpackers, because that's my jam. The backpacking travel is my jam, and I want to get dirty. I want to smell and like just be sweaty and like experience one thing, everything. Yes, you know. Oh, do you want to? Yes. You want to do this? Yes. Just be fully in it. And so so I set that up. Or I created my itinerary, but I was also intentional in knowing that like anything can change. You know, this is my plan for the X amount of time, and this is where I'd like to be by week 2. But if I really like where I am by week 1, like maybe I'll stay. Maybe I don't like it and I want to go to where I'm meant to be in week 2. I'm gonna maybe go do that instead. And I was very okay with meeting people and them being like, so we're gonna do this. Do you want to come? And I'm like, do I? Okay, yes, let's go. You know? And so because of that, I got to see and do some really cool shit.
Totally, because you're allowing space for fluidity and just being able to be in pure presence. Because like at the end of the day, nothing ever goes as planned. Like, let's be real. Whatever it is, anything that you're planning, like never goes exactly the way you planned it. And so it's like leaving room for magic. It's like, okay, I have a skeleton of what I want to do. And I'm also going to account for the magic that I want to happen and appear in this time.
I love that. Leaving room for magic.
Yeah, because we spend so much time in our logical minds, and anything that our guides or God or whatever you want to call it, the universe, those are things that our minds can't even comprehend. When things play out, you're just like, damn, I would have never thought. I would have never even like realized how this could have even played out better than this, you know? And so it truly is magic. It's like leaving space to be able to break free of your patterns at home and just be.
Yeah. And like, so it's, you know, kind of going off of what you're saying, like when I created my itinerary, I thought, okay, the big cities, I want to see the big cities. I never, you know, I read a couple of things about trekking in Nepal, and I said, I'm brave, but not that brave. You know? I'm gonna chill on that for now, you know. And it wasn't something that I prepared myself for at all. I just said, you know, I love people who do that, but it's not me, you know. And so, while I was in Chitwan, I was in Pokhara in Nepal. Pokhara is such an amazing city. Like you are at the, like, it's like the city right before, or it's the city you have to be in so you can go trekking, because it's like the city that opens up the trek to go to Mount Everest,
to the Himalayas.
Yeah, exactly, to the Himalayas. And so I So happened to go to Pokhara. Didn't really have plans. I met some guy on a bus and he mentioned the city and I said, okay, that sounds like fun. I didn't know where I was going to stay. He told me I stayed at this amazing hostel once. I said, I will stay there now. And so I stayed there, and then through there, I made some great friends. These people, I love them forever. I think about them a lot. They're fantastic humans. You know, the one day my one friend Lise, she's from Amsterdam. She was like, we're gonna go trekking and do this for a couple days, and I'm just like, I don't know. And then she's like, okay, well, we'll keep talking about it. So then we would go out to lunch, and she'd be like, and we can see this while we're trekking. And I'm like, that sounds like fun. You guys are gonna have a great time. And then she kept bringing it up, right? I said, I don't even have a coat. No, I'm not gonna go do that in the Himalayas. That's crazy. Yeah, and so.
But I came all the way over here. I'm not gonna do it.
Right. And so finally, kind of having that conversation where it's like, you're here, like, why would you not? And I'm like, you're right, I'm gonna go. And that was one of the hardest, most beautiful things I've ever done in my life. It was so hard, and it was so fun, and the experience, how much I grew from that, like the challenge, because I was already like thousands of kilometers away from anything that could be, like, I can't take a bus and go back.
You can't be like, I'm done.
I'll see you guys later. Right. It did not exist. So I had to just stick it through. And like, I remember there were points where we're like trekking up the mountain, and it becomes like stairs. It's like these like handmade stairs, and we're just kind of going up, and it's raining, and then I'm like huffing and puffing and like crying, like actually crying. I'm like, why did I sign up for this? Because just in the moment, I'm sitting in my stink, I'm like, oh, like I feel so bad, like, sitting in those feelings as I'm walking up. And then I look to the side of me, and there is like this, she must have been like 60 years old woman, just water, a 5-gallon thing of water strapped to her back, just like no problem, just I'm like crawling up these stairs, and this woman's just like and I was like, all right, I gotta get it together. And like, yeah, so I had a bunch of moments of realization, like, this is really mental, you can do this, you got it, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah,
we did it, it was good.
It's crazy, right, when you get in those moments, because I had a similar experience in Montenegro. I hiked the highest peak, which is, I want to say it's like 2,000 meters. So about 6,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
About 6,000 to 8,000 feet. Anyways, I have a really bad knee from playing sports when I was young. And I literally went up with Nikes. I did not have hiking shoes at all. And we went and we stayed in like Zhebyak, which is like this tiny town and where the mountains are. And I was like, 8-hour hike. Easy. I'm going to do it. In Nikes that I had just been traveling the world with, I went up, and like going up, I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 hours into it, I was like, dude, my knee hurts so bad. And I don't know if I'm going to make it. Like I really, and I had people with me too. So I was like worried that, oh, well, if I like, stop, like I don't want them to stop because they're here doing their thing and all this stuff. And it's actually really funny. We were walking in this area. It was like all rocks, like loose rocks. And then it was just like straight down. And I was like, ha ha ha, like fucking around. And I was like, all about the journey, not the destination. And I fucking slip.
No.
And I fall. And had I fallen just a little bit sideways, I would have been down this mountain. And my like legs bleeding. And I'm just like, it's fine. Everything's fine. So the guys that I was with, I was like, listen, you guys keep going forward. There's only one way up, one way down. I will figure it out. Right. I'll meet you at the top. And we're like, I can see the peak right there. And I'm just like, okay, I still have at least like an hour and a half, worse, if not more. My knee's killing me. And I'm like sitting on this rock, tears, just like crying. Cause I'm like, I did not come all the way over here to not make it to the top. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, all right, this is that mind over matter moment. Like you said, it's like, this is a challenge. It's not something that cannot be done. It's not like my leg broke or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm in pain. Can I slow down and, slowly get up there? Sure. I like the whole way up. but I made it to the top and I was like, yeah, I did it. And I remember sitting at the top, I was like, this is amazing, But then coming down.
Yeah. I feel like that's where.
That was the worst, especially on my knees, because all this pressure just every going down. Yeah. When we got down, like, to our hostel, I remember not being able to walk for, like, a solid 2 days, where I was like, first off, I'm never hiking again in Nikes. What the fuck was I thinking? Like, now I'm like, I would never put myself in that situation. No wonder I fucking almost slid off the mountain. You know what I mean? But it's like, also, I would have been better if I was more prepared, but I did it. And I was so proud of myself. And I still tap into that moment, which is crazy. Like, I tap into that, like, you do meditations or, where you're like, remember that one time that you pushed yourself so fucking hard and you cried, but you still made it? Yeah. It's tapping into those moments of challenge that we're like, we did it before and we can do it again, doing anything. Right. It is totally mind over matter.
100%. And it's like these ties, like I see everything like red strings, right? And things that tie us together, or the memories and stuff to the feelings, like these red strings to, like, it's important to call on that, because, like, as we go through life, like, you wouldn't think, or I don't know, I feel like people wouldn't think like a moment in Nepal, and now I'm in the US, like, it's kind of irrelevant to me now, right? But not really, as I'm going through life and I'm figuring out what I want to do, and like I've started this new career and things are difficult and they're scary, but like being able to pull on those, like that red string that brings me back to this feeling, like this emotion, just reminds me that I'm a badass bitch and I can do anything that I put my mind to, and like anything at all. There's no roadblocks but the ones that I create myself and I allow to, like, sit, like the ones that I allow to stop me. That's the only thing that exists. Anything else I can overcome. It's fine.
Absolutely. And it's like, bringing it back to the roadblocks, it's like, it's all mind created. We sit here and we're like, and two, it's the universe being like, how bad do you want it?
Right.
How bad do you want it? Because if you don't want it that bad, you're not going to get it. But there's a difference between fighting for what you want and then also not surrendering to the process, right? Because so many times in even relationships, you fight and you fight and you fight, and you realize, like, I'm also not surrendering to the signs. Instead, I'm fighting the whatever. It's not even necessarily a roadblock, but you're just fighting something. You're not surrendering to the process, because you can surrender to the process and see something as not necessarily a roadblock, but a test. How bad do you want it?
Right.
And then you get it and you're like, I fucking deserve that. Fuck yes.
And I can do anything. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And you tap into these moments. And it's crazy too. I think, as when we're young, we're like, oh, like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, I have nothing to lose, da, da, da. And it's so strange that as we get older, we tend to be more stuck in our ways.
It's like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's like fear starts creeping in, right? And it's like this, you get comfortable with, I've talked about this because it's like, it's so interesting that I remember being 19 years old, 20 years old, and being like, nothing scares me. I can do anything, And as I've gotten older, I'm more hesitant to do things that I would have done without blinking an eye, And some of them were maybe a little crazy, and like maybe now I just have a little more of like, preservation of life, Or I'm like, is this risk worth? Is the reward worth the risk? Which is fine. It's fair. But I think that it's an issue when it keeps you from living. It becomes like a real, like, you really got to sit with yourself and say, like, where is this stemming from? Where is this hesitation stemming from? What is this coming from? Is this real? Is this preservation of life? Am I just trying to, or am I just so afraid of, like, stepping outside of my comfort zone, the zone that I've kind of, like, fallen into, that I'm now no longer living the life that I've, like, wanted to live for myself,
Right.
So yeah, I think that it definitely happens, especially as we get older. You have more things to take care of. You have a house now and a car, and maybe some people have kids, some people,
But how bad do you want it?
Right.
That's what it boils down to. It's like, you know, when we're young, we don't so much care about what society tells us. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But as we've gotten older, it's like, oh, you're in your 30s. Like, you should be married with kids and have a career and make X amount of money and da, da, da. And I'm like, the people that are doing that, a lot of them are really unhappy.
Very, very much so. Yeah.
You know? And so I'm like, why don't we teach society to be happy, to chase the things that give them life when they wake up? When you wake up in the morning, are you excited to be awake? Mm-hmm. Or are you sitting there and you're like dreading that moment you have to get up and do these things? And it's like, what an unfulfilling way to live.
100%.
You know? And that's 100%. Like a huge thing too, that I've been seeing in like studies of people who are passing, and how they say that a lot of the things they regret are like not being able to travel, or choosing to travel when they had the time, and realizing that they really don't have that much time. Time flies by like this.
Right.
And, you know, I've been trying to get myself in a space, instead of using the word time, it's energy. Am I putting my energy towards things that I know that I'll energetically get something good back from it?
Right.
Or am I putting my energy towards something that isn't fulfilling, and then I'm literally just wasting my energy?
100%. And like, yes.
Yeah. So after Nepal, you did Nepal for 40 days. What was your gold? Like your gold nugget from Nepal, if anything, what was it?
Honestly, I think it was kind of going off of what we've been saying, the realization that I can do anything, because I was so scared. I remember the first day that I was in Nepal, like I remember getting off the plane, having to go through customs and getting like my, I needed a visa. I didn't realize that was, so I didn't do the best research.
You prepped everything and you're like, oh, fuck, I need one of those.
And so I'm like, oh God, you know, I thought, you know, it ended up working out just fine. But then, you know, getting a cab, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to this hostel, take me here. And he's just kind of going through the streets, and it was culture shock. It was a culture. I'm from a third world country, and I've seen like poverty, you know, I've seen it in my family's homes, you know, but like, this was different. This was like a different experience, and like seeing, just like going through the streets, and people are just going to work and they're just doing their things. But to me, it was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people on the road. And as I'm going, my windows are down and people are like, hey. And at the moment I had blonde hair, like really, really blonde hair. And so people are like taking pictures of me. It was like a weird thing for me. And I'm just like, okay, so whatever. So I get to my hostel and I go upstairs and I'm just like, oh God, I did it. You know, I'm like, I did it. I'm here. Great. I said, so if I never leave my hostel, I've still been in Nepal for 30 days. I can still say I came, you know, it's fine. And I remember, you know, the time change between Nepal and, you know, where I was in Long Island was like, I think it was like night and day. Like during the day over there, it was nighttime here. I remember reaching out to every person I've ever spoken to just because I needed comfort. And so I'm like messaging like just anyone that I can think of, like, hey, I know we haven't spoken in 3 years, but you know, I'm doing this weird thing. Yeah. Could you talk to me? You know, just looking for some sort of connection. And I remember I messaged my one friend, Olivia, and I will thank her for this for the rest of my life, because it was like just what I needed, just desserts. It was like perfect. And so I messaged her and she's not responding quick enough for me. And so I snap on her and I'm like, what the hell? I'm like in Nepal by myself. Like, the very least you can do is respond to me. I need a friend right now. And she like turned around and was like, Stephanie, you're doing Nepal because you wanted to do Nepal for such a long time. What are you going to do? You're going to stay in your hostel the whole time? I can't be there for you. I can't experience Nepal for you. I can't sit there and be a crutch to you. Like, I love you so much. Contact me. Please let me know how things are going. But I can't. She's like, I'm living my life here too. Like, I got to go to work, you know? And I'm just like, oh,
you have shit to do?
I was like, gosh, all right, fine. You know, I'm like, I guess I'll go find something to eat, you know? And I like put my phone away. Like, I was like, you know what? It's fine. And you know, it shifted my experience. But then because of that, because she got me out of the hostel with such cruel, mean, uplifting words, that I walked out, and I had like my New York, New Jersey, like mean mug on, you know? Don't look at me. Why are you staring at me? Like, what the fuck is going on? Just so like, ugh. Like, I had opened myself up to go to Nepal, but then as soon as I got there, I was like,
you energetically.
Yeah, I said, no, thank you. I don't know you, stranger danger, you know? And it's like very much the wrong attitude to have. Yeah. And so I'm walking down to get some food. I asked this guy, like, oh, where did, you know, recommendations. I get there and I'm sitting there by myself, like having like the Nepali beer and like traditional food. And I'm just like, I'm here.
I've been prepping for this forever and now I'm here and I want to go home.
Right. And so I'm just sitting there to check in with myself, right? And I'm like, I feel myself very closed off, and you know, I reflect a lot, and so I'm like, I came here, and all of a sudden I'm just like this shell, like I'm blocking myself off, like I need to figure out where is this coming from, like what is this, you know? And so definitely fear based, all fear, and I realized like, you know, I'm walking around these streets of Nepal, right, with these beautiful people, and I'm just giving them the scowl. They don't deserve the scowl. They haven't earned the scowl, you know? Like I need to like reel this in. I'm like, you know, I'm gonna leave this restaurant and instead of scowling, I'm gonna smile. I'm gonna want to scowl because the fear is like, you know, stranger.
Don't let anybody in.
Right. Yeah. But I'm gonna smile instead and let's see where that takes me. Because the scowl was not taking me very far. No. I had left, like I was like down one block from her, so I had not gone very far at all. And so I leave the restaurant and I decide to smile and it changed everything. You know, the smile allowed me to be energetically open, and people feel that, you know, it's a magnet. And so people are approaching me, hey, can I take your picture? Which at first was weird, but then I said, listen, I'm a foreigner with blonde hair, and people here don't have blonde hair. It wasn't real blonde hair, but it was blonde hair nonetheless, you know? And so I'm like, let me just, who cares if they take my photo? I don't really care. And so I just kind of started allowing that. And then it gave me the opportunity to speak to some of the foreigners, to the locals that spoke English. And then I got recommendations from there. And then, oh, where do you think I should go here? Oh, you know, and like it just opened up so much that like from there I got to do someone that I had met had recommended their cousin to take me on tours. And I said, okay, great. From there, I got to see beautiful temples and like things that like I had read about. And I said, I would like to do this. But in my head, I was going to take buses and stuff. But I realized I could just, this guy's going to hang out with me all day. And, you know, maybe even make me feel a little safer too. Cause like I was still, you know, still a little had the fear on me. Like I still had a little bit of that. So, he took me to amazing, beautiful temples and stuff. And I just had a fantastic time. I recommend Nepal 100% to anyone that wants to travel. Like it's such a juicy, delicious country. It really is.
That's crazy because I just had my really good girlfriend Melanie on the last podcast, and she also spent quite a bit of time in Nepal. Same thing, loved it, obsessed. Really? She did the Annapurna circuit, and I think she ran a tour. It was 13 days. And she said the same thing about Nepal. I've been wanting to go, but I was in India and I was like, India and then Egypt next, but then it doesn't make sense to go to Nepal, then Egypt. But I've heard amazing things about Nepal.
So good.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd go back like in an instant. I go back. It's one of those places I'm like, I would 100% not even think twice. I'd say, okay, here we go again, you know? Yeah. It's so good.
Well, and also to touch on, you know, the being closed off. We do that even in our day-to-day lives.
100%.
Which I had this conversation on the podcast last time. It's like, now I'm learning to be more open and receptive. Yes, there are times where energetically I feel like I need to just shut off a little bit because I need to charge my battery so that I can give more, you know, out of my overflow. And even just making that choice to be open in the grocery store. You know, I made a man that works at the grocery store and he's so sweet. We always end up in these like really deep conversations. And I'm like, had I never been chosen to be open energetically to even just smiling at somebody or saying thank you or hello, you know, and it's crazy because we also don't think of the ripple effect that we create. I'm smiling at you and you could have had the worst day and then you walked by me or someone and someone smiled and like this your day turns
shifts. Around. Yeah. It's yeah.
We create a ripple, really, and it's out throughout our entire lives. And we might not even be able to see the ripple effect on somebody else, but know that there is, right? It's like, I put that smile out there. I had that good conversation with somebody. I cheered somebody up,
right?
And it ripples out to them, and then they cheer somebody else up, and it just ripples and ripples and ripples.
Right.
And doing that, especially with the place that like we're traveling to, which is massive, right? I'm going in there as a foreigner. I shouldn't be closed off. I should be open, because at the end of the day, I'm visiting your country, and I'm here to understand things about you and your culture.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then here we're closed off because it's like, oh, I just don't have time for you, or whatever it is. And it's still the same thing.
Yeah. And like, yeah, kind of going off what you're saying, it's built like, it allows you, or it opens you up to being able to create those new relationships, and like just touching people energetically, you know. It's like a big thing. I need to practice it more, definitely, especially when I'm here. It's different. I don't know, I get into my day-to-day stuff, and I find myself like, I'll pass by a mirror and my face is like this. And I'm like, why am I angry right now? You know, but inside I'm like, da-da-da-da-da, and like, I'm like, what is going on? I gotta fix this, you know? Yeah. And it's like, it's not who I am. I'm not like an angry person or anything, but sometimes I think we just get so used to this like shield. We gotta shield everyone off from us and protect our energy, which is true to some level.
Sure.
But yeah, definitely the smile changes things.
Yeah, and it's, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago, we've had to learn to protect ourselves in a different way, because we're protecting ourselves from animals and being hunted and whatever it is.
And men,
everything, you know? And now we live in a time where, yes, we do have to protect ourselves and our energy, but we don't need to be so protective all the time.
Right.
We're actually much safer than we ever have been in our thousands of years of being human, you know? And so instead of tapping into that subconscious of like constantly trying to protect ourselves, it's like, why can't we tap into the fact that we are safe and letting our bodies know that we're safe, right? That's another practice. It's like, I am safe. Because that's where anxiety, all these things, depression, all this stuff stems from, is from the fact that we do not feel safe.
Right. And also being that everything is an energy and you attract things, it's like living in the fear. Like, if that's the energy that you're residing in, right, like you attract more of that energy to you.
Yeah.
And so like being able to step outside of it. And I think it comes a lot to centering yourself. Like centering yourself, centering your energy, and like, okay, like I'm safe, I'm good. Like there's no need to have these walls up to the extent that they're up. You know, it's always good to be mindful and to be aware, but like the state of fear that it's become so common to constantly be in, like that's just not healthy in the overall. Because I just think it just brings on more and more, you know, things with like COVID and stuff. And like, I think that it shifted us very much so. And I think it's been like that for a long time,
right? Even
before that. But I think more often than not, we're just sitting in that fear, like that energy of fear, unless we center ourselves and step outside of it, you know. I think that opens up doors too, which is very
absolutely nice. And it's, you know, going back to like, you receive at the frequency that you function in. You're functioning in the frequency of fear, that is what you will receive. You function in the frequency of joy and openness, that's what you'll receive. And it also goes back to leaving space for magic. If I'm open to receiving, I'm not going to sit here and create in my mind what I'm going to receive. I'm going to be open to receiving and knowing and trusting the universe, or whatever you want to call it, that those things that are coming in are for the better good of me.
Right.
You know?
Right. Even if they don't make complete sense in the moment.
It won't always make sense. And guess what? 3 years down the line, you're going to be like, that one moment, it makes sense.
Right.
Now I get it.
Right. It's so true.
You know, and it's following your excitement. You know, when you're excited, when you meet somebody, like even like when we met each other, I was like, I like her. I want to be her friend. And there's a reason why. I don't know what it is, but we're going to be friends. And look at how it panned out.
I know.
You know, it's really beautiful to just follow that innate feeling of connectedness or excitedness, to be able to create more of that.
Right.
You know? And it's the same thing with traveling. Like you travel and you're very heavy in your fear. Like, oh, I'm afraid that I'm going to get robbed, or I'm afraid that I'm going to get whatever it is. It's like, well, I understand that totally, because there are spaces where you do have to be a little bit more aware.
Right.
But are you going to let fear stop you from doing those things?
I have a good story on that too.
Oh, tell us.
So Rick and I took a trip to Mexico, and we spent about 2 months and some change there. Rick is my partner. He's my boyfriend of 7 years. 7 years. Lucky number 7. Yeah. And so it was after we had done a stint. Like, I do want to mention that seasonal work is such a good opportunity for travel. Like, if traveling is something that you want to do, and like you want to get funds for it or whatever, seasonal work is it, because you can make so much money in such a little bit amount of time, and then fuck off for a couple of months. And it's what a lot of my friends did who have done seasonal work with me in the Hamptons. A lot of them, like, it was like we would work a couple months and then just wherever the hell we wanted to go, and it was great. That's where Rick and I had met. He was in the Hamptons working at a resort doing seasonal work. And right after we had left, we were like, okay, we're going to take one big trip. Let's go see. It was his first time outside of the country. And so he would ask me, I would have said Asia, because I'd love, like, that's like where I want to travel to and explore. But it was his first time, and I said, let's meet in the middle somewhere that he's a chef. And so his favorite cuisine, favorite type of food to cook is Mexican food. So let's go to Mexico. Let's go try some authentic tacos. You love making tacos. Like, let's make sure that, like, what you're making is authentic to what it is, like, it's the only way that he'll, like, see it, since he doesn't have a grandmother that can show him, like, it's just not his culture. So we went to Mexico, and we started in Mexico City. And, it was fantastic. I love Mexico so much. It's a beautiful country. Had I been able to stay there and live, I think that I would. It's such a beautiful, great space. But we got to Mexico City, and, kind of going off of what we're talking about fear, but then there's also spaces where you do have to be aware, and you have to be smart about, I don't know, like, your choices. Like, you can't be ignorant to the realities, right? So it's like you have to be open and say, like, yeah, I'm willing to accept whatever opportunities come my way, and, like, I'm not going to live in fear, and I'm going to be brave. But then you also should do your research as to, like, where you're walking through and, like, what you're actually doing.
Yeah,
that's also important.
Right. Don't treat these countries like it's your home country.
Right. And so we get to Mexico. First thing we do, dental work. Cavities, all the things, because I'm sure everyone knows how expensive it is to do any sort of dental work in the States. So anyways, we do that, and then that was like day 2 or 3, and I'm like, let's go to Condado. Condado is like this, like, barrio. It's like a little city, like a little area in Mexico City. But we got to get from Bellas Artes, which is another area, to Condado. And I look on the map, and this is my fault, because I did not do any research on this. I had no plan. My plan for the day was dentist. So this is just like on the whim, So I didn't really do any research, and I didn't ask any questions.
Yeah.
And so I just said, okay, we're gonna get from Bellas Artes to Condado, and to get from point A to point B, you have to. And we wanted to walk, and so I didn't research. I didn't know. So I said, okay, Google says, and I think it was my hubris because I speak Spanish, and I thought, we're gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine, like, I don't have to. But
what did Google say?
Google said, like, 3 miles. 3 miles, you zigzag here.
3 miles.
And so I'm like, okay, fine, 3 miles, no big deal. We got this. That'll be fun. We can see, like, the area. And we're walking through. Not a problem at first. Not a problem. Then all of a sudden, we're, like, maybe half a mile away from Condado. And it takes us through train tracks. This is hubris, silliness, not smart on my part. I was like, it's fine, like, we're good. And so we're walking through behind, like, these like little like towns in between in the train tracks, and then all of a sudden I start smelling so much weed, and I'm like, that's maybe it's a skunk, I don't know, and just like ignoring all the signs, ignoring every single sign that
you're like, it's fine, I speak Spanish.
Right. I was like just relying heavy on my Spanish speaking and ignored every single gut feeling, every single sign, which was just absolute lunacy on my part. Like, usually when I travel by myself, I lean into those. I lean into my gut. And I'm using this as an excuse, and it was a terrible excuse. But I was with my boyfriend. I said, I'm safe.
I'm safe as
I don't gotta use. Shh, we're good, And like, all of a sudden, these two men run at us in like full cholo gear, like a black and white striped shirt, long sleeve. And I look at Rick. This is embarrassing. I look at Rick, and I'm like, weird. It's kind of hot for them to be running and. Just absolute, and then they come and they like hold us at gunpoint, and
oh my god,
yeah, and so it was a little struggle for a little bit, and then I had taken this Polaroid camera from Rick's book bag prior to like us even starting the walk, just because I was like, I felt bad, he had a book bag. I said, I'll take some of the weight, but this thing was broken, and that's really why I wasn't using it the whole time. So when the guys approach us, I'm speaking Spanish. I'm like, no tenemos nada. We don't have anything. Like, please. And I feel like it struck a nerve, the fact that I could speak Spanish, or maybe I just like to believe that, so I can still hold on to the fact that was some sort of safety net.
I saved us,
right? And so the guy, like, I give the guy the thing, like, mutually, just rips it off of me, and they run away, and they take it with them, and they just start running. I peed myself. I was so scared. I just you always wonder what kind of person you're going to be in those situations. Oh. I'm the kind of person that pees themselves, apparently. I just like, wow. I didn't even notice until we like start walking, and I'm just like, oh gosh, like what's going on? And we start walking out of like, it's like the opening, almost like the end of the tunnel. We see the light, and we're literally down the block from where we were going. And we're like, okay. And I see a little guy selling cigarettes, and I like buy one, and I'm like just so scared. And then, Condado is a really, really, really nice part of Mexico. It's like really, really pretty and like upscale. So we went to like the nicest restaurant we could find at that point. We were trying to be conservative with money, like just thinking of like the long trip ahead. But that day I was like, I don't fucking care. It's crazy to think of too, because we had almost all of our cash with us. We had our phones. We hadn't gotten a card yet that we could utilize there. Mm-hmm. And so we had a lot of money on us. Both of our phones were like $1,000 a piece, like all this stuff. It could have been worse. Our documents were with us, our passports and stuff. It was like really ignorant choices were made, prior to going. Like that was just silly decision making, And so, we ended up eating some, having a bunch of drinks, taking a cab back, and I'll send you a picture of I took a selfie of us right after waiting for the Uber, because I was like, I need to document like this moment, these feelings. And so we're just like, and both of us are just so defeated, and so this happened maybe day 2 or 3 of the trip, and we still had 2 months and some change left. So a lot of decision making had to happen right then and there. So we go to the Airbnb, and the first night, nightmares. Having nightmares of like seeing their faces and stuff, and just being so scared. And I would wake up just like in a like sweat, and I felt responsible too, because here I am trying to show him that travel is so great and so fun and so safe. And then, some things you can't plan for, and you can't plan against. Like, things are going to happen the way that they're going to happen, but definitely you can be smart about the decisions that you make and the research that you do. Like that's something that's in your control.
Yeah, right? And being prepared for it.
Right, like preparing for things, like that is in your control. Like a lot of things are not in our control. We barely control most of anything in our lives, but being prepared and like doing the research and stuff, that is what's in our control. And so I feel like that's where I had messed up a little bit. But we had spent maybe 2 more days in the Airbnb and not wanting to really leave. And so, knowing that we had to go eat because we're humans and we need sustenance, but like being afraid to like step outside. And so after 2 days, I remember being in the Airbnb and just being like, listen, like, we have to make a choice now. Like, we have this massive trip planned. We can buy a flight and go back home. We can't do that. That's well within our right. And I think that no one will look at us twice after what's happened if we decide to go back home. It's okay if we do, you know? And me being really honest and real with myself, because that's like my ego was bruised too, you know?
Right.
But also trying to hear him, because this is his first time outside of the country, and making sure that I'm, you know, not like overshadowing the way that he feels about it all, because I know that he's shook up about it, you know? Mm-hmm. And so just after some very real conversations, I'm like, we don't have to stay here. We can leave. Like, Mexico's massive. We don't have to stay in Mexico City. We can leave, or we can stay here and just try and be smarter about our decisions, or we can go back home. And we decided that the situation wasn't going to dictate what we did moving forward. Like, in terms of sending us back home, we made it out fine.
Right.
They took a broken camera that was probably going to go in the trash anyways, you know. There was no loss except maybe a little bruised ego, little trauma that I took with me, you know. But we worked it out. But we both weren't going to let that ruin what we could experience moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, because had we left, like, that would have been the end of that story, and that would have been our experience in Mexico.
And you would have sat in that fear even longer.
100%.
Because you're like, oh, I left this country because these things happened to me, and now I don't know that I could do it again.
You know, 100%. And so we decided to keep going, and we still stayed in Mexico City a couple of days. We were super cautious, and, you know, don't get me wrong, it's not like we were like, we're free again, you know. It was like definitely still more reserved as to the things we were doing, but I wasn't going to stop living, you know?
No, and it taught you a massive lesson. It's like, I talk a lot about being prepared. Like, it's not about living my life in fear, but knowing that these things can happen. Right. And if they do happen, am I going to be prepared for this moment?
Right.
You know, like, not carrying a bunch of cash on me.
Right.
Not flaunting my cell phone all the time. Right. Like, people get out in the middle of the street and they're like, here's my iPhone 20. And I'm going to take a picture, and this is a $2,000 phone. Right. And I'm going to make it known that I have money.
And, like,
you know,
I think most importantly, my takeaway was trust my gut. Read the signs. You know, like, be open to, like, you have to be aware enough to say, you know, I didn't really research this walk. I didn't really know if this was okay. We're going down a train track. Maybe we don't need to be doing that right now.
You wouldn't do that at home.
Right. Absolutely not.
But you choose to do it in Mexico?
Right. Like, absolutely not. And so that was it. Like, it was like reading the signs and listening to my gut through it. Because, like, I did start feeling a little easy, a little quaky, you know, and I was like, it's fine, you know. And it's like, I feel like I sold myself out in that moment. Like, I you know, the innate trust that I have with the universe, my gut, to always guide me in the right place. I completely ignored all the signs. Right. So, yes, that happened, you know. But we ended up going to Oaxaca after. We did Puerto Escondido, stayed there for a month. It was one of the best, most beautiful trips I've ever had in my life. I met such amazing people, and, like, just got to eat so much and do so much and connect. And it was a great time. And, you know, it's one of the things that me and him kind of think back on now, and it's like, we're proud of our bravery for staying, because anytime we tell the story, you know, especially to people who don't really travel that much, they're like, and you stayed? Yeah. And it's like something really difficult for them to, like, accept or, like, to understand, but, like, it's something that brings us great pride and, like, makes me, like, I don't know, like, I'm gonna try this bitch and it's gonna be fine, you know.
It's true.
And we worked it out. Yeah, it was good. So yeah, that was a fantastic time.
What has made you constantly choose to continue traveling?
I want to see the world. Yeah. I think the world is so beautiful. Like, there's just so much out there, temples and caves and people. Another food.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, like, some of the most delicious, I've eaten such crazy, fun, delicious things, you know, that, like, otherwise I wouldn't know that they existed, or I wouldn't be exposed to them. And so food for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. And then connection, like the people that you meet. Because like it does take a little bit of something to make the choice to go out and travel by yourself or travel with friends. Like you got to have a little bit of this something that like brings you out there, this bravery or this like trust or this something. Even if you get to Nepal and you're terrified and don't want to leave your Airbnb the first day, you know, like there's still this something about you. And like meeting people like that, it's inspiring. B, like, I mean, just the connection and sharing stories, like you can learn so much from everyone else. And like that right there is everything, you know. Like right now I'm planning a trip to Vietnam. I'm going in April.
Yes.
After many years of not traveling, because I was in school and I was like just filled with like, I was so focused on this one thing, like getting my degree and like starting this career. I've been lately feeling like something's been missing a bit. And I'm like, what is it? What is it? Like, what can I, like, you know, I'm going hiking and I'm trying to do this. And, you know, granted, I am working a really off schedule, the night shift schedule at the hospital. So, you know, so a mixed bag of that, but also I want to see more. I want to do more. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So, yeah, so I've started planning this trip. This trip is going to be about 9 days. It's end of April. It's either, I haven't booked this flight yet. It'll either be end of April to May, to like first week of May, or it'll be end of March, the first week of April. I'm not sure. It'll be one of those little stints. And I've started the preliminary research. So, you know, just looking up how much it's going to be per day, like how much is expected, like am I expected to spend? What's a plate of food look like? What's transportation looking like? Things like that. And so, I'm excited. And I've also looked up a couple of hikes, whereas like when I went to Nepal, it's not something that I was interested in. But now I'm like, I had such a great time, even though I cried going up the mountains, you know, like it's going to be fine. I'm going to make it there. So I just want to see more, do more, eat more food.
Yes. Yeah. I love that you do so much research because I am similar in the aspect. I never really sat there and was like, oh, how much is it going to cost me per day? Which I think it's so amazing that you do that. I should probably be a little bit more organized. But my research is the country, its history, what is socially accepted, especially when you're going to predominantly Muslim countries, how to dress, best places to stay, like neighborhood wise, what's safe, what's not, all that stuff. So I get to understand the history of the country before I go, so that when I'm talking to the locals, I'm, you know, not trying to tiptoe around things and kind of more greatly understand where their perspectives are coming from, you know, because traveling through Croatia, Montenegro, Bosnia, Serbia were all ex-Yugoslav countries. So their perspective on the war, on the Yugoslav war, is vastly different throughout every country. So to just at least get the general idea of what has happened, and then also like getting there and doing tours of the cities to better understand what has been going on, to then understand why the locals are the way they are, you know? So I do like different types of setting myself up, but I love that you're like, how much am I going to spend today? Because it's also it's making it a reality for your brain to see like, oh, it's actually really not that bad,
right?
Because a lot of people are like, oh, you traveled for a year, how much money did you spend? And I'm like, that's what you're concerned about,
right?
I went with like close to nothing, and I came back with close to nothing.
Filled with experience.
I came back with close to nothing money-wise, but I came back filled with knowledge and experience and just things that, like, I know, like, for you and me, when we talk about traveling, like, I feel my entire body light up.
Yeah.
You know, it's just something so beautiful about the deep connection that we get to make with other travelers, and then also the people that live on the land.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so Vietnam's going to be amazing. There's actually they just found one of the largest underground caves in the world.
Really?
Vietnam. Yes.
Well, that's funny because one of my options, or one of the things that I've decided that I possibly could do, is to trek to a cave. It's a massive cave. I've never seen an opening so massive in my life, and there's like a lagoon inside.
They just recently found this cave.
No way.
Yes.
Okay, so it's like I think it's like a day trek or 2-day trek to get there, and then you pay, like, you could pay, I think it was like, what I saw was like $350 to $400 to sleep there for the night, which
honestly, totally worth it.
Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah, I'm like, how can I not? I'm gonna be sleeping in a cave. Like, there's
no price on the experience. Period. Traveling wise, there is no price.
Right.
I understand that people got budgets, but there is literally no price.
And there are things that like you should say to yourself, like, this is worth it. Like,
am I ever gonna do this again?
Yes. I'm gonna go to this country and not do this. That's crazy.
I know.
That's crazy.
Right.
You know? No way. So I'm excited. Aww. My plan too is to like send out feelers to all my travel friends from Nepal because they travel a bunch. I like follow them on Instagram and stuff, and they're everywhere all the time. So I'm just gonna send feelers and say, hey, I'm gonna be here.
Right.
Let's see. It's happened where I've been in Amsterdam and have run into someone from Nepal. Not even my friend Lise that's from there. It's just like this. Dude. My other friends just wandering, you know, and I'm like, what? You're here? You know, I feel like the universe is just constantly
the
like.
The world is so small. The 100%. Amount of moments I've had where I'm like, what are you doing here? Right. I haven't seen you in like 3 years and you live in Australia, you know? Wow. Well, as we wrap up, is there anything that you want to share, like traveling wise, like something that you think that why people should absolutely travel or why they should take that leap of faith to do the thing that they've been, you know, putting off or feeling like there's roadblocks that are stopping them from doing it?
I think we are all capable of really amazing things, right? And I think that the world is just filled with all these fantastic, amazing, mind-blowing opportunities, and you're not going to know unless you put yourself out there and you give it a try, you know, like go for it. Go, you got to be brave, you know, and I believe in you and you should believe in you and you should go ahead and do it.
And always have supportive friends that believe in you.
Right.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much.